Welcome back to my CreepyNews lair. Today I wanted to remind you of the fact that dear old Timothy didn't tread very well. He was such an enthusiast about bears that it ultimately got himself killed. Yes, he got eaten by a bear. That's pretty tragic, but at the same time pretty dumb on his part, because he knew the risks but still decided to enter their lair, so to speak, and get himself and his girlfriend in a lot of trouble. Deadly trouble, that is. So today I wanted to share with you some of the details concerning this case. So let's begin. So here's a little bit of background for you. Treadwell was born on Long Island, New York, one of 5 children of Val and Carol Dexter. At high school he was the swimming team's star driver. He was very fond of animals and kept a squirrel named Willie as a pet. In an interview in Grizzly Man 2005, his parents say he was an ordinary young man until he went away to college. There he claimed that he was a British orphan who was born in Australia. According to this account, his father said Timothy spiraled down and became an alcoholic after he lost the role of Woody Boyd to Woody Harrelson in the sitcom Cheers. Treadwell studied the bears during summer seasons for 13 years before being killed by one of them. According to his book, Among Grizzlies Living with Wild Bears in Alaska, his mission to protect bears began in the late 1980s after surviving a near-fatal heroin overdose. He claims in his book that his drug addiction grew from his alcoholism. So this is already pretty tragic in a way. If you take this into account, that he claimed that he was a British orphan, I've read comments here and there, people say that this guy was absolutely crazy in a way, that he was mentally not entirely stable, to say the least, and that might actually be the case, especially if you become an alcoholic or a drug addict. It messes with your mind, it makes you do crazy stuff, consider crazy things, and ultimately you might pay a dear price for it. However, as you're gonna hear in a bit, he did actually overcome his addictions, specifically by developing a relationship with bears. So in a way, I guess his mental stability must have at least improved somewhat, but maybe there was permanent damage going on there, I don't know, or there was underlying mental health illnesses that, I don't know about. But ultimately it's a very tragic turn of events if you consider the full story that we're about to cover. So let's go on. Now, they state about his early life and education on Wikipedia, for example, that he was a lover of animals since he was a child. He decided to travel to Alaska to watch bears after a close friend convinced him to do so. He wrote that after his first encounter with a wild bear, he knew he had found his calling in life, and that now his destiny was entwined with those of the bears. We could say his destiny was entwined with their intestines, in hindsight. Now, he attributed his recovery from drug and alcohol addictions entirely to his relationship with bears. Now, as a person that has been addicted to alcohol himself, I can only admire that. I mean, the fact that you can overcome an addiction by feeling more in touch with nature, whether that is nature itself or animals, is always a useful thing. But again, the tragic part about all of this is that it actually got himself killed because of his highly interest in bears itself, to actually enter their living space and observe them from close by, trying to be their friends and pretending that everything will be alright with these wild animals, which obviously it didn't turn out alright. They're very territorial, I would assume, so entering them is at your own risk, and he knew the risks, that much is sure, but he still went with it. Because it was ultimately in 2003 that he died, and they stated the following about it. In October 2003, Treadwell and his girlfriend, physician assistant Amie Huguenard, visited Katmai National Park, which is on the Alaska Peninsula across Shelikof Strait from Kodiak Island. In Grizzly Man, Werner Herzog states that according to Treadwell's diaries, Huguenard feared bears and felt very uncomfortable in their presence. Her final journey entries indicated that she wanted to be away from Katmai. Treadwell set his campsite near a salmon stream where wild bears commonly feed in autumn. He was in the park later in the year than normal, at a time when bears attempt to gain as much fat as possible before winter. Food was scarce that fall, causing the bears to be even more aggressive than usual. He and Huguenard were to leave the park at his usual time of year, and had actually returned to Kodiak on September 26 to store their gear for the season and catch a connecting flight to return to their home in California. After an argument with the airline ticketer over the price of altering his return ticket, Treadwell and Huguenard made the decision to return to their campsite on September 29th for an additional week. He also wanted to locate a favorite female brown bear that he was concerned about. He said he hated modern civilization and felt better in nature with the bears than he did in big cities around humans. The bears he had been used to during the summer had already gone into hibernation, and bears that Treadwell did not know from other parts of the park were moving into the area. Some of the lost footage taken by Treadwell hours before his death includes video of a bear diving into the river repeatedly for a piece of dead salmon. He mentioned in the footage that he did not feel entirely comfortable around that particular bear. In Grizzly Man, Herzog speculates on whether Treadwell filmed the very bear that killed him. Around noon on Sunday, October 5, 2003, he spoke with an associate in Malibu, California by satellite phone. Treadwell mentioned no problems with any bears. The next day, October 6th, Willie Fulton, a Kodiak Air taxi pilot, arrived at Treadwell and Huguenard's campsite to pick them up, but found the area abandoned, except for a bear, and contacted the local park rangers. The couple's mangled remains were discovered quickly upon investigation. Treadwell's disfigured head, partial spine, and right forearm and hand, with his wristwatch still on, were recovered a short distance from the camp. Huguenard's partial remains were found next to the torn and collapsed tent, partially buried in a mound of twigs and dirt. A large male bear protecting the campsite was killed by park rangers during their attempt to retrieve the bodies. A second adolescent bear was also killed a short time later, when it charged the park rangers. An on-site necropsy of bear 141 revealed human body parts, such as fingers and limbs. The younger bear was consumed by other animals before it could be necropsied. In the 85-year-old history of Katmai National Park, this was the first known incident of a person being killed by a bear. A video camera recovered at the site proved to have been operating during the attack, but police said that the 6-minute tape contained only voices and cries as a brown bear mauled Treadwell to death. The tape begins with the Treadwell yelling that he has been attacked. "Come out here, I'm being killed out here," he screams. That the tape contained only sound led troopers to believe the attack might have happened while the camera was stuffed in a duffel bag or during the dark of night. In Grizzly Man, filmmaker Herzog claims that the lens cap of the camera was left on, suggesting that Treadwell and Huguenard were in the process of setting up for another video sequence when the attack happened. The camera had been turned on just before the attack, presumably by sound activation, but the camera recorded only 6 minutes of audio before running out of tape. This, however, was enough time to record the bear's initial attack and his agonized screams of Treadwell. Its retreat after Huguenard tells Treadwell to play dead, and when she attacked it, and its return to carry Treadwell off into the forest. Now this final sentence here in this article is so weird to me, I'll repeat it for you. Its retreat after Huguenard tells Treadwell to play dead, and when she attacked it, and its return to carry Treadwell off into the forest. That's how they end the article on the wikis, at least. Now basically I've heard of this case years ago, like most of you probably, and it actually kind of disturbed me. The idea that you go out camping and then get eaten alive by a bear is pretty messed up, to say the least. However, in this case we have to remember we're dealing with someone that knew the risks, that knew the area I was in, and he still decided to go there with his girlfriend. Perhaps his gut feelings were right when he saw that one bear that he felt uncomfortable around, seeing them fish for dead salmon. He knew exactly what he was getting into, but still he decided this was way better than living in society. Now I can see that you would be sort of fed up with modern civilization the way it is. I mean, after all, the rat race of society is fucking ridiculous in general, but getting yourself killed just because of the love you have for wild animals is just as stupid as anything else that you can think of that would end up killing you, most likely. It's sad to hear how this whole story ended at the end of the day. I'm glad he got off his addiction, but ultimately he got off it permanently by dying prematurely. I hope they're both resting in peace, and with that being said, dear viewer, have sweet dreams.